Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today I am back doing something for the first time on this channel, but also something for the 50th time. This is the 50th Chaos Draft video I am uploading, so it's a great milestone for the channel. So I figured I would do something special, wanted to do a giveaway of sorts, but I didn't know what I would give. So I decided I would do something that makes maybe a little more sense, both from my perspective in terms of what I can provide and for the perspective of my viewers and my community members in terms of what they would enjoy. So I'm doing a Draftaway. I'm hosting an event where the person who is selected gets to choose what to draft. So that means if you want to do a Chaos Draft, I mean, never going to say no to that. If you want to do a flashback draft, if you want to do a cube draft, whatever format you want, you get to choose. So that's any flashback or any cube draft, as long as it can run on Magic Online. Oh, and one more thing. You get to have your choice in how you want to participate. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. You can just watch. I'm going to be streaming this one on Twitch. You can also talk with me. We can share the same seat and work together. Or you can have your own seat and we can battle it out. So whatever you want to do, you can. So really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a nice way to get you guys involved. And I'm really looking forward also to seeing what you come up with. So if you want to participate in this, if you want to have a shot at being the one who controls what format is drafted, just join my Discord. The link will be in the description. So with that all out of the way, let's dive into this final draft of the Pioneer Chaos format here. All right, so pack one, pick one. We do have some nice gold cards here, but let's check out the monocolored ones first. So we have Squash, which is decent removal spell. Much better in this format though, where you can actually pick up some giants. In a format where you can't pick up giants, this is going to be a relatively clunky card, not something you necessarily want to first pick. There's also Bind the Monster here, which is another efficient removal spell. This time, though, it's clunky because it deals damage to you, and a lot of the blue decks do want to be more controlling. The tempo-based blue decks probably love this card, but not every blue deck is tempo-based. So I ended up going here with just one of these gold cards, so let's check out Solrolf first. So 3 mana, 3/3. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls dies, basically, it's going to grow. And then you have the choice to remove all of the counters and do this kind of pernicious deed effect. But a card that I thought was even better than that is this Fall of the Imposter. So this one, it is a gold card. I do have my reservations about first picking gold cards, but it's just so much value. It's like Common Bond at first, green-white gold card that puts 2 +1/+1 counters on things. So you get to do that the first couple times, and then the third chapter, you get to exile something with the greatest power among creatures an opponent controls. And if you want to, you can actually grow your opponent's creature with the first couple chapters, so you can guarantee exiling it with that third chapter. But anyway, I just thought that this card was a lot of value. Looked pretty strong, and most of the time the thing with the most power is what you want to kill. So that was my first pick here. All right, pack one, pick two. Cards in this pack, one of the ones I'm excited about is this Stealer of Secrets. I always do like these Ophidian effects. There's Trostani's Judgment, which is a nice expensive removal spell though, if we wanted to try to stick to our green-white plan. But I thought the best card in the pack was this Annihilating Fire. It's a little tricky to cast, but whenever you can get like an open fire effect of this sort, it's going to be a very good limited card. So I did decide to go with that one here. Thinking about some kind of Naya strategy maybe, or red, white, splash green, red, green, splash white. We'll see where it takes us. All right, pack one, pick three. Well, we do have a nice one here in my Peasant Cube in Seeker's Squire. But there's also a really good one here in the Imperial Aerosaur. I think this card is going to be the best one in the pack. 4 mana, 3/3 flyers, already really nice card. And then that jump effect when it enters the battlefield is pretty relevant too. So happy to take the Aerosaur here. Still thinking about some kind of Naya possibility. All right, pack 1, pick 4. We do have a strong red card, really, and this thing does cast sort of a silence variant on the backside, but that's not as relevant for us. Really, 2 mana 2/1 that has a strong pump ability is a solid red 2-drop. They don't always give these red 2s 2 power. This one probably does start with 2 power just because it's a rare, but it's a good card. That said, there's a Witherbloom Pledge Mage in this pack. And this card is great because it leaves me really open. Not really sure whether I'm supposed to play red yet. I've only gotten the one Annihilating Fire, and if I end up playing green-white, Witherbloom Pledge Mage is a card that makes my deck. If I somehow end up in a weird spot where black is more open than the colors I've seen so far, then I can still do that. So Pledge Mage, really nice stats, lots of flexibility, and the incidental life gain never hurts. Alright, pack 1, pick 5 here. So this was a really tough one for me because at this point I can really tell that red is open. There's a Sweaty Bee here, and this card is pretty nice in the original format. This format, it's not quite as good because you're not going to be able to improvise it very often, but there's still a Shock here, and that is quite a nice red interactive card. Problem is, I'm kind of all over the place so far with the cards I've taken. I'm not committed to red by any means. Maybe if I had taken the red 2-drop last pack, I'd be taking the Shock here. But instead, I was a little more interested in this Iron Tread Crusher. I've heard some really nice things about this card. The numbers on it are pretty good, and it is colorless. It's no Renegade Freighter, of course, but the fact that this thing, kind of like the Pledge Mage, has a pretty good chance of making my deck, regardless of where I go, was appealing to me. And yeah, I know exactly how good Shock is. I was curious to see how strong that Crusher was. Alright, well, pack 1, pick 6. Red is still open, apparently, as this time we get a Chandra's Magmut, which is a very nice red 2-drop, and a Shock. Well, we don't need to read that one, we just saw it. Other cards in this pack, there are some good ones in blue, but not too much really to think about there at this point. I just want to be taking one of these red cards. So this time I did decide to go with the Shock. Felt pretty rough to have just passed one, and then now I'm taking one. Feels like I'm a pick behind on my signaling. Maybe last pick I could have taken the Shock, and then this time I pick up the Magmut. But the important thing to remember in situations like this is it's always better to pivot and still benefit from it than just decide, oh, it's too late. Like, it's only pack 1, pick 6. I have a lot of time to end up in red. All right. So speaking of, there's only one red card here, and it is a blue-red card. But blue has seemed to be open so far in this direction. There's also an Ingenious Scob. But we have some decent cards in white so far. And there's another one here in this pack in Fiendbinder. And this is a card that I was definitely interested in. It's been very nice for me before in the aggressive decks. Just something that I think gets underrated a lot. It's not quite as good as Starcrowned Stag, but a threat that taps a blocker is kind of like the white form of card advantage. So definitely a powerful effect for us. All right, pack 1, pick 8 here. Unfortunately, we do find that there are still some playables. So the Sage's Road Denizen is a pretty mediocre card unless you're doing something very silly with it. But there's a Warmind Infantry here, and 3 mana 2/3 that can grow into a 4/3 is a totally acceptable card. Surprised to see it here this late, and we know that red is open, so happy to take the Infantry. Pack 1, pick 9. Blue still seems to be open. There's a Bind the Monster, but we have some incentives to play white at this point, and frankly, the white cards pair really well with the red cards. The blue cards do not pair quite as well. So here we're happy to take a Starnheim Courser and try to end up just in this Boros or maybe Naya deck based on our pack 1, pick 1. All right, pack 1, pick 10. Here I believe I picked up a Dynacharge, which is a reasonable red card, could go into an aggressive deck. And pack 1, pick 11, we get a Queen's Commission. This card is really nice with equipment, if you can pick up any of those, and works decently with that Dynacharge that we just got to. Pack 1, pick 12. There's a Soothsayer Adept, and this is a pretty nice one. Though we have very few incentives to play blue at this point. We've seen a lot of medium good blue cards. The best one was probably the Bind the Monster, which somehow wheeled, but most of the blue cards we've seen at this point are not anything amazing, just like pretty good. Then here, pack 1, pick 13, we get a nice decommission for potentially the sideboard, probably not the main. Pack 1, pick 14, we get a Teferi's Protege. And pack 1, pick 15, just get a mountain. All right, pack 2, pick 1 here. So we do have some interest in playing green. Remember that Fall of the Imposter that we took, and the green would pair decently with the red if we are able to do that somehow and maybe splash white or something like that. And the Kazandu Mammoth is just a very tempting card in general. It's a really powerful one. The rate on this thing is very good. And I just think that having a card like this in your deck is always going to increase your win rate in Limited. On the other hand, there's a Thundering Rebuke, which is a very strong red card. We do already feel pretty committed to red at this point. And this is a really efficient removal spell. So it's not as powerful a threat as the Kazandu Mammoth is. I think the Mammoth is probably a better card just because it has so much flexibility. And when you hit your land drops, it hits super hard. But I did end up deciding to go with the Rebuke here. I just thought that it was very likely to make my deck and improve it significantly. Pack 2, pick 2. Very strong War of the Spark pack here, which is practically redundant. There's a Bloom Hulk, which is quite nice. Obnixilus's Cruelty. There's a Wanderer's Strike 2, which we could take. But I ended up here deciding to go with this Tybalt. This card is pretty nice. The Devils can be very effective. If you saw my draft with the other Planeswalker that produces Devils, Zerial, then you know just how good these things are. So yeah, I was happy with the Tybalt here. All right. And then here is the major payoff for trying to play Boros. We finally got there. With Haktos himself, the unsplashable mana cost for a 6/1 with that kind of Achilles heel ability. So a very powerful card as long as the protection lines up the right way. Regardless, it is going to be a big question mark for my opponents of can you answer this? And if they can't, well, they're going to be taking 6 damage, hopefully multiple times. All right, next up here. Unfortunately for us, nothing too exciting in this pack. Read the Bones is a very powerful card, which I'd love to take, but just not even close to being able to put that in my deck. There's also a Thunderclap Wyvern, which is a strong card, but once again, very far from what we're trying to do. I have very little respect for cards like Swift Reckoning, especially in the aggressive decks. So here I just went for a Cleric of the Forward Order. We're very light on 2-drops currently. Lots of 3-mana cards, and the Cleric is a good one, so happy to pick that up. All right, next up here, pack 2, pick 5. We see another very powerful black card after that Read the Bones in the Banewhip Punisher. But once again, it's just feeling like pivoting would be impossible at this point. We have gotten the Haktos. We picked up the Thundering Rebuke over that Kazandu Mammoth, so we're really locked into Boros. And here we have this Oketra's Avenger, which is a very strong 2-drop. It's always going to be able to attack pretty well. And yeah, once again, missing 2-drops, this is a premium one to pick up. All right, next up, pack 2, pick 6. There are a ton of cards on color for us in this pack, so it's a good sign for sure. Most of them are pretty mediocre, and there are a lot of white cards. So, of course, my strategy in situations like this is to take the best card of the color that is less common in the pack. So I'm going to take what I consider to be the best red card, and then hopefully I'll wheel a good white card. And so here I ended up deciding to go with the Boots of Speed. Maybe my opinion would be different if I'd played the set more. I have never cast You Come to the Knoll Camp, so I don't know how good this card is. But the Boots of Speed seemed reasonable as a cheaper, like, Crystal Slipper kind of effect, and I do think I have a good shot at wheeling one of the white cards. All right, next up here, pack 2, pick 7. There isn't too much that's really exciting here. Stitched Mangler is a decent one, and Obsessive Skinner can be really good, but enabling Delirium in this format seems very difficult. So I was interested here in the Cathar's Companion, which is a card that I thought would be pretty solid. I have a number of non-creature spells already, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a good attacker for me. All right, pack 2, pick 8. We get a nice late one here in the Enoch Bondkin. Of course, picking this up in a Chaos draft is not nearly as good as picking it up in Khans of Tarkir, but this 2-drop is still quite strong, and it's here pretty late, so feeling like I'm really reaping the rewards of going into white. And then pack 2, pick 9 here. There's not too much going on. I have, unfortunately, very few types for party. You might notice that the Enoch Bondkin, for example, is a soldier, and that does not contribute to party at all. So here I just went with the Resolute Strike as a reasonable combat trick. Not one I'm really excited to play, actually hoping I won't have to, but it's still a fine card. Alright, next up here, pack 2, pick 10. We see Spark Reaper, one of my favorite black cards, come around super late, but unfortunately it's not on the table for us. We've got to take this Honor the God Pharaoh, which is a card I do like quite a bit. When you add a mass to one of these effects that doesn't, interact with the board, they get quite a bit better. So Honor the God Pharaoh is a card I am happy to pick up here. Pack 2, pick 11. This time we take a Heliod's Pilgrim. This is a pretty speculative pick. We might be able to pick up like a Pacifism, something of that nature, and that could make this a pretty strong card for us. Pack 2, pick 12. This time we get a Healing Hands. Not a card I'm really ever hoping to play, but maybe in the right matchup it could do something. We'll see. Pack 2, pick 13. We get a Solitary Camel. It's not really a card with text. It's just a 3-mana 3/2, but hey, that's still a playable body. And speaking of playable bodies, pack 2, pick 14 here, we get a 3-mana 1/1 Double Strike. And yeah, it can phase out. I don't really know if that's something I'll have time for. Haha. But yeah, the Blink Dog is an interesting one, and we'll see if that ends up doing anything special for us. There's some combo potential with Double Strike. And pack 2, pick 15, we get a land. Alright, so after that pack 1, pick 1, Fall of the Imposter, really strong Selesnya gold card, there's another one here, Frondland Felidar, and this card is very, very good if you can build around it. If I had taken this pack 1, pick 1, my draft might have gone a very different direction, hard to say. But regardless, at this point it's too late. It's pack 3, I have no fixing, don't want to end up playing Naya, and there's a flame spell, so just like that pack 2, pick 1, where I picked up the Thundering Rebuke, nice red removal that deals 4 damage here, is going to be something I can't really say no to in this spot. A very good card, and maybe I'll even get to trample over and deal some damage to my opponents. We'll see. Alright. So, with this pack 3, pick 2, we have a very difficult decision. We have 2 really strong white cards. We have Archon of Absolution and Trapped in the Tower. We also have 1 really strong red card in Redcap Melee, and 1 very medium red card in the Seven Dwarves. So I could take either of the white cards, and I could move along and I'd be fine. Could also take the Redcap Melee, but my thinking here was that the Melee is probably the best card in the pack for me. It's another very efficient removal spell, whereas the Archon, I already have expensive cards in this slot, and it doesn't do anything super special unless I'm playing against white, and of course if that's the case it's very good. And Trapped in the Tower doesn't always kill the stuff you want it to. Auras like this can be punished in a number of ways. I was actually hoping I would wheel the Seven Dwarves. So my thinking was, if I take the Melee, which is the card I consider the best in the pack for me, even though there aren't many red cards left, in fact really only 1, I would be basically making it so everything else is more appealing. and maybe that means I'm able to wheel the 2-drop. I'm probably wheeling the 2-drop no matter what, as long as I don't pick it here, but still, that was what I was thinking about as I did take the melee here. Alright, pack 3, pick 3. This time we see some powerful gold cards. Here's Toil and Trouble, which is one I like a good deal. And there's, I guess, Profit and Loss, which is, like a worse version of Zealous Persecution, but Zealous is a very good card, so it doesn't say too much. But here we're able to take a really nice Boros Guildgate, very solid gold card, a very solid mana fixer that will improve our deck and our consistency. Even though we're looking to play aggro, we also have a Haktos in our deck, remember, so we are going to want our mana to work out for us. Alright, and then pack 3. Pack 3, pick 4, we somehow get a Flames of the Firebrand. Nice Arc Lightning, and it's here pretty late, so I'm not too sure what's going on. I do have the Heliod's Pilgrim, so maybe there's a world where like Auramancer could have been a good card for me, but Flames is just a great card, and it's here relatively late, so happy about that. Okay, next up here. So I'm not a huge fan of this card in general, but I do like Loyal Pegasus in a deck like this. It's a cheap play. Just need to be able to get onto the board early with an aggressive Boros deck like this. No, it's not a 2-drop, and yes, it does have a drawback, but compared to the rest of the stuff in the pack, I think it is a pretty solid choice, and hopefully it'll perform well for me. Okay, pack 3, pick 6. If we had gone into Naya, we had some really funny potential. Zakama's never a card we really should be drafting. Not from this seat anyway, but it is a funny one to notice there. There are some medium red creatures in the pack, but we already have cards in these slots that are better. So here, there's a Squire's Devotion. And this card is really nice. I'm not a huge fan of auras in general, but this is a little ways to making that Heliod's Pilgrim playable, and it's also, unlike most auras, not card disadvantage if your creature gets killed. Because you are able to make that token, and a lifelinker could be a really important body. So happy enough with the Squire's Devotion there. Alright, next up, here we pick up Invoke the Divine as a nice sideboard card. We're never going to need something like Explosive Apparatus in a deck like this. We already have too many good red burn spells. And Fountain of Renewal is an interesting sideboard card, but I just think that the Invoke is going to be a better one most of the time. Alright, here, pack 3, pick 8. I think the card I took was a Leaf Crown Dryad. There is a Nessian Courser, and I do love these effects, but as for a hate draft, I think this is a nice one. The fact that it has reach goes a long way in the green decks, which can't necessarily deal with flyers. It's also a really nice 2-drop, so just felt like the most powerful card to take away from other drafters. Alright, pack 3, pick 9. Cathartic Reunion and effects like this are okay. I already have one that I consider to be better because it has a mass printed on it, the Tormenting Voice effect. But there's also a Tentative Connection here. And I don't love Active Treason effects, and we have like nothing with Menace, but this one is pretty interesting for us, mainly because it's a good sideboard card. If we play against decks with lots of large creatures, it could be a pretty powerful and interesting effect that could change the matchup. And then pack 3, pick 10. Sure enough, neither of the white cards wheeled, even though we didn't take them. But we did get the 7 dwarves back. And so while something like Garenbrig Squire people might think of as medium from Throne of Eldraine because the text isn't super important, and 7 dwarves people might remember as being much better. In this Chaos format, they're basically equal. We're just interested in the dwarves because they're on color and we need another solid 2. Alright, pack 3, pick 11. There's never a situation where I want to play 6 mana 6/3 haste in my low to the ground aggressive deck. And Beetle Form Mage is a really strong one. The fact that it's still here means that it's unlikely anyone's playing blue-green, but just in case anyone is, I don't want to let them get away with this thing being here so late, so I picked up the Mage there. Pack 3, pick 12. We see a Sensory Deprivation, which is going to be much more playable than either of the other spells in this pack. I like this card a good amount more than other people do, so hate drafted that one there. pack 3, pick 13, we get an Epiphany Storm. This card isn't too interesting to me, and maybe there's a world where this comes out of the sideboard to do something. We do have the Heliod's Pilgrim, probably not, but maybe. Pack 3, pick 14, we get a Mistcloaked Herald, and then pack 3, pick 15, we get a Mountain. So this is how I ended up building the deck. You can see it is very aggressively slanted. I did have, 4 2-drops, but felt like I had one enough of the time that it wasn't too awkward for me. I had a bunch of the cards in my sideboard be pretty relevant as well, so I'll try to mention them as they come up here. But yeah, for the most part, pretty happy with this deck. 16 lands and the 1 Guildgate in there over a Plains. Alright, here we are for game 1 of round 1. Get a pretty nice hand. And we rip a 2-drop off the top, which is perfect. Get to play that. Opponent has a Stealer of Secrets. So that's one of the only cards that would make me really want to play defensively here. So here I just play Cathar's Companion, and now I just leave my 2/2 back, because if my opponent has a removal spell on the Companion and they get to draw a card, then I think I'm losing. So I am going to be pretty conservative in that regard. And opponent has a Balustrade Spy, and this is one of the weirdest things I've seen for a long time. So watch my graveyard. In fact, I'll pop it out here. So this mills until they hit a land. So they milled 10 spells. I was going to draw 10 spells in a row, which frankly is pretty insane. Like, it's hard to imagine losing after drawing 10 spells in a row, even if I wouldn't have gotten the second Mountain for Annihilating Fire for a long time. So just a very strange Balustrade Spy, not to mention that right now Magic Online is experiencing some weird bugs, and cards like Gorging Vulture will just like mill your entire deck. So I don't really know. I don't think that was some weird Moto bug. It was just unusual. So here I'm just going to play the Aerosaur on curve. I'm setting up for next turn Starnheim Courser plus 2 mana Squire's Devotion, which is pretty nice. And now I can't give the Companion flying because it'll just trade for their Spy, so I'm going to give the Cleric flying and attack for 3. Opponent has an Orzhov Cluestone and Gust of Wind on my Aerosaur, which is not the best thing ever, but they attack with both, and now I get to trade for their annoying 2/2, and that means we can stop having to play a little bit defensively here. Alright, so now I think I just play 2 creatures. I think I just jam the Starnheim Courser and the Oketra's Avenger. Yep. Opponent has Rogue class, kind of an interesting one. And they have, whatever this is, Closing Statement. So on the end step, they are able to blow up my 2/2 flyer and put a counter on their Balustrade Spy, which is pretty annoying for me. But the good news here is I get to Aerosaur, give +1/+1 to the Oketra's Avenger, which I now get to exert and attack with. Opponent takes it down to 11. Opponent has a Dusk Legion Zealot. And they level 2 their Rogue class, which still isn't doing too much right now. Their stuff has Menace, but they can't really attack. And now, pretty nice turn. I get to play the Squire's Devotion on the Aerosaur. Attack, the opponent goes down to 6, and I play the Bondkin. And you might notice that I have 6 points of burn in my hand. Opponent has 4th Bridge Prowler, which is not a very good card in general, but it's amazing versus my deck. Kills my Oketra's Avenger. And they Legion's Judgment, my 4/4 flying lifelink, and attack for 1 Menace. I'm just going to double block here. Probably didn't need to do this, but wanted to get their stuff out of the way, and thankfully we draw a Mountain, which now means we're going to be able to Annihilating Fire on their end step, and then we'll just be able to Flames of the Firebrand on our turn. So the opponent goes for an Arcanist's Owl here, fortunately tapping out of the blue mana, so I don't really have to be worried about a counterspell. Really the only thing that can get me here would be something that gains life. But I just end up going for the 2 burn spells, and fortunately it works out. So in sideboarding, I believe I made 1 swap here. I think I swapped the Tentative connection for the Boots of Speed, because it seemed like for the most part they were playing bigger creatures than mine were. So if I pulled off the connection, it would probably have a better effect than the Boots. Alright, back for game 2 of round number 1. And we have this hand, which is a keep, but it's not a very exciting one. We draw planes off the top. Feels like we could easily be dying from this, but looks like the opponent's missing land drops, fortunately for me, so I just get to play Solitary Camel. They have a debilitating injury, and now I just drop my Aerosaur with no targets. Just a 3/3 flyer against their 2 lands. Opponent just does nothing here. I play a Warmind Infantry. A little choked on red mana, but can't really complain. Opponent plays a Cluestone, and we get to drop the Tibalt and minus here. So pretty soon we'll have Battalion for that Warmind. And opponent just goes for a Sarah Angel, which in theory would hold off my board, but I do have a Tentative connection, so just going to do this regardless, and go for a big attack. And, well, everything about this draft seemed very convenient and lucky, because I guess that's 12. Alright, here we are back for round number 2. Pretty nice hand here. Obviously hoping to put the Squire's Devotion on the Blink Dog at some point. You draw Cathar's Companion. Passing back and forth here against this red-black deck, but they're on Mardu Tron here. They play Underworld Charger, which is kind of annoying for me. So here, I think I just go for the Cathar's Companion. If I put the Squire's Devotion on it, it'll do just as much damage as the Blink Dog. And it hits a little bit harder currently than the Blink Dog. So that was my choice there. Opponent has an Emberhorn Minotaur, and now draw land. So I'm just going to double spell, play the Thundering Rebuke on their Minotaur, and drop an Enoch Bondkin into play here. Get to attack them for 3. Opponent attacks me for 3. And they intervention my 3/1. So they gain 3 life, which is very bad for me in this race. So here I just go for the Aerosaur and get to attack for 3. Still taking 3 from their Charger as they start filling up their graveyard, especially I don't want to put it in there for them to escape. They play a Blade Tusk Boar, which fortunately Red Cap Melee is the perfect answer to. Get to attack here for a bunch, and then I don't remember whether I played, it looks like I played Blink Dog. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So opponent goes for another attack for 3, and then has, what? Oh yeah, just a destroy target creature basically on my, oh yeah, and they play their last card here, which is pretty important information for me. So they blow up my flyer, and I don't quite have enough mana for Starnheim Courser into Squire's Devotion, so I think I just played the Courser here. No, I went for the Devotion, so I decided I wanted to go for it. The opponent is empty-handed. I'm hitting for 6 and gaining 4 life, so actually no, it doesn't seem like a very close decision in hindsight, and yeah, that was enough for the opponent to scoop it up. So against the round 2 opponent, it felt like they had a ton of removal and were generally trying to trade 1 for 1. So I brought in Queen's Commission, which seemed like a nice way to produce multiple bodies against their removal. And I believe I also brought in Honor the God Pharaoh, and I think I took out Dynacharge and Boots of Speed. Alright, so here we are. And it looks like we have a pretty nice hand. We're very close to putting together something very powerful here. Opponent has a Borderland Marauder, which is going to be quite the problem for us. We whiff on our 2-drop, not super surprisingly. We don't have that many in the deck. and opponent plays a Gear or Gear Crafter. So now we end up playing the Queen's Commission. Ideally, the opponent attacks with their 1-2 and their 2-1. We put the 2-1 on their 1-2 and one lifelinker on their 2-1. But they make an attack that's much worse for me. So I try to trade my Pegasus here and my vampires over there. Opponent has a shock, so that's much worse for me. And then here, I believe I just jam Haktos. Yeah. So I just jam Haktos, and it looks like I hit 4, which is very good for me because they have a 2-drop and a 3-drop in play, which means they can't attack into the Haktos, and they can't block the Haktos either with those creatures. A little worried about the Intervention, which is the Boros split card. That could be like a Lightning Helix to the Haktos, but they play 4 mana 3-2. Fortunately for me, I have a Flame Spill, which is going to put them to 18, and suddenly the Haktos crashing in is like a 2-turn clock after this. So the opponent's seriously in trouble. We take a bunch of damage. They find the Torment of Venom, which is really, really horrible for me. I have nothing I want to discard, nothing I want to sacrifice, so I end up just paying the 3 life here. And I draw Oketra's Avenger and cast Blink Dog as well. So now, opponent attacks with just the 1. I'm going to trade it with Oketra's Avenger. And they play, oh yeah, they play the Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. This is the second time I've had to face this card in this format. So 7 mana 4/4, Vigilance, protection from creatures, which basically means any creatures like can't block it. You can't really attack into this unless you have a flyer. Oh, and if you have a flyer, it's going to get destroyed, and then the controller of Teysa will make a flyer. So this card is just like one of the most brutal, unbeatable cards unless you have a non-creature answer for it. And fortunately we do. We top deck Red Cap Melee, which is possibly the only card in the deck that would have done it at this point because I've already played the Flame Spill. So extremely lucky draw. I get to sack my mountain. I think I just drop the Crusher, or no, I go for the Squire's Devotion here and just serve for 4 points of lifelink once again. And they play Emberhorn Minotaur, which isn't too bad for me. And here I play the Iron Tread Crusher, and I have 3 power now. It's kind of hard for Blink Dog to crew the Crusher, but with the Squire's Devotion, it works. Opponent does not attack, and they play a land. And now we just have the opponent dead a million ways. So we play the Solitary Camel, get to use that to crew the Crusher, and we attack with the Blink Dog and the Crusher. No matter what they do here, the shock is going to destroy them. They try to double block the Crusher, and we shock their 2-1, and that's just going to be game over. Alright, here we are back for round number 3. And we get this hand, which is decent, a little land heavy, but can't complain about 2-drop into 3-drop with a cheap removal in the back. And we just go Oketra's Avenger here. Opponent does nothing. We attack. Opponent still does nothing. We play Cathar's Companion. Opponent has a Reckless Racer, which could be kind of annoying, but fortunately we draw a Flame Spell. So we don't have to worry about like exerting the Oketras or like only attacking with the Companion or anything like that. So we just Flame Spell that. They take 1, and then we attack them for 6. They're down to 10. We have a shock in hand as well. They Fiery Temper, the 3-1 that can't gain Indestructible, probably a good choice. We attack with the 3-1. Drawing lands here, which not looking too good for me. They have Torment of Venom. I just discard a land. Not too worried about my life total just yet, but it just seemed like I would never need that land. So here I just play a Loyal Pegasus. Opponent has a 6 mana 4/5 Death Touch, but I rip Haktos off the top, and it looks like Haktos is going to choose 4. their creature is a 6-drop, so nothing to fear. And then we have a lethal attack set up with the Haktos and the Pegasus, not to mention Shock in the back. Opponent goes for here a Foreboding Fruit to draw some cards, look for some way to interact with Haktos. And they do find one. They draw 4 mana 5/2, which would keep them alive here. And then that food would help them try to come back in the game, but we do have that shock. So we're going to shock the 5/2, and that's just game over. So after that one, I wanted to make some similar choices in sideboarding. So I think what I ended up doing this time was bringing in the Queen's Commission, and I think the tentative, no, I think I brought in Honor the God Pharaoh here. So just once again swapping out Boots of Speed and Dyna Charge, because it seems like all my opponents have a lot of removal, so I just need to bring in cards that are a little harder for them to interact with and potentially give me some card advantage. Alright, so here we are back for game 2 of round 3. We have a very nice hand. We get to lead on the Guild Gate, and we play Noketra's Avenger turn 2. We draw Fiendbinder, just going to attack with the Avenger, never putting the Squire's Devotion on it into open mana. Opponent just passes the turn. And we're just going to attack with Oketra's Avenger, and now it's turn 4, and they're still just holding up 2 colors of each land. So I start getting really, really suspicious. We already know that they have a lot of removal, and they could very easily have a sweeper here. There are at least like 3, I think, black sweepers that are like 1 black, black. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So if we just play into that, we could end up losing. And as long as the opponent is just taking 3 damage for free here, it seems like I have no reason to play things out. They play a 0/3, which would still survive one of the sweepers I'm talking about, so still no reason to play anything out. Opponent has now taken 9 damage from the Oketra's Avenger. And yeah, we're just drawing and playing a million lands here. Looks like the opponent is finally going to kill this Oketra's Avenger. And they do. And so I'm going to play the Fiendbinder here. Just in case they do have one of the Wrath effects that I was talking about. If they end up having to trade for this, then I'm pretty happy. So they play a Rakdos Ringleader, which is kind of scary, but not super bad for me. But this is enough for me to conclude that they don't have some kind of -2/-2 effect because they have a Ringleader in play. So I just go ahead and tap the Ringleader, attack them for 3, they take it, and then I just play Haktos here post-combat. And it looks like Haktos is going to name 2, which I'm probably pretty happy about. I think there are a lot more 3 and 4 mana removal spells in their deck that could potentially kill it, so looks like the Thermo Alchemist can block it, but that's about it. And I think I go for the Warmind Infantry here too, yeah. So we have a free block on their Ringleader, which means they can't make us discard, so that's nice. Opponent plays something very expensive, apparently. Oh, they play a Meteor Golem, so I think that's going to hit the Fiendbinder. Yep. And now they are just passing here. And here we get to try to set up a win. So we go for Haktos. They, of course, block, which means we don't just win the game with the shock. They deal 1 to me. Now we play Tybalt, and I think I put the Squire's Devotion on the 2/3. So now we have a 3/4 that can block either of their 3 powered creatures. We have a couple other blockers as well, or attackers, depending. Opponent has a Thrall on our 3/4. So once again, the Haktos being immune to removal is pretty nice. And here we just put the Vampire in front of the 3/1, which we don't really care too much about. We don't care about the Vampire or the 3/1. So now we just go ahead and attack with the Haktos. And we go for the shock. And that does it. So just like that, really, really great deck. Haktos apparently is pretty good in Chaos Draft. But better than the deck were the draw steps. So, like versus the Tesa, that was a very timely top deck. All right, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this 50th Chaos Draft video. And just a reminder to enter that Draftaway event if you are interested in doing so. Just join my Discord. The link will be in the description. And from there, just let us know which format you would like to draft. You'll be entered. So hoping to see you in there and wondering what sweet formats people will come up with. Looking forward to seeing those too. Until next time.